Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name's Dick Fleming, and I was a reconnaissance scout with 1st Recon Battalion and then 1st Force Recon. And I tell my stories in a book that I wrote called Chasing Charlie. It's available on Amazon. And you may also be interested in my website, firstforcerecon.com, where I have photographs that I took of my time in Vietnam and other people have sent me over the years. There's also links on that URL to other information about the reconnaissance community in general. So that's a good resource. Also on that URL is a link to my playlist, which shows the videos that I put out in sequential order from when I first got in Vietnam till the time I left. And even beyond what happened when I got back to the States. So that playlist is really the best way to, if you're interested in my series, to view the videos in sequential order. I think they make a lot more sense that way. That's the way I would recommend viewing them. In our team, we learned to trust one another, and that was very important. That trust could make all the difference in life and death, and it was important that we got not only to know one another, but to know the personalities of each other. We all had strengths and we all had weaknesses, we all had good points and we all had faults. But when the chips were down, we had to rely on one another. And we also had to rely on one another in so many other ways to be sure that things were done properly. Because all it took was a single mistake, and it would not only kill the person who made the mistake, but also kill those around them. If the point man walked into an ambush, the entire team could have been lost. And that went all the way down through the entire recon community. All of the men, had an important role to play. The riggers, for example, who set up the parachutes, They had to not only know what they were doing, but have their mind on their work and make sure that everything was done perfectly. And I never had a parachute malfunction. So when we got a new guy into the team, it took quite a while before we trusted him. We were always looking and checking what he was doing. We had one new guy who came in, and I swear to God, he turned the claymore facing toward us when he put it out on a bunker. And it says right there, this side toward enemy, but he turned it around, had it placed toward us. Either he didn't know, or he wasn't paying attention, or whatever. He just wasn't cut out for us. We got rid of him. He was out the door. There was another fellow who came into our team. Recon qualified, and from the moment he stepped into the hooch, the chemistry was just off. Instead of trying to make friends and to learn from the other people, he sort of sat by himself. He used to read the Bible a lot. And the other guys went up to the lieutenant and said, we got to get this guy out of here. We don't want to go in the bush with him. And God help me, I was the one who stuck up for him. I was the one who said, give him a chance. He just got here. No, they didn't want the guys with more sense than me didn't want him around. And what could the lieutenant or the sergeant do? They had to transfer him out. And actually, and I can't swear to this. This is all hearsay. I was told that he actually killed another man, another grunt, in a foxhole one day. Shot him. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I do know that we never went out with him. There was something about him, a bad chemistry, a bad aura, whatever you believe in. But the other guys spotted him, a Jonah perhaps. Maybe that's the case of a Jonah, where you can sense that there's something off. And he was gone. But in general, I mean, we had to depend on one another on every aspect of the patrol. We had to know that the tail end Charlie was going to be checking out behind us and keeping his eyes open. Bo depended on me to keep his back, because I usually ran the second man in. But every single man in that patrol, there was only 6 or 7 of us, and we had to take care of one another, and most of all, be extremely careful as to what we did. When we used to get back, from a patrol, it was such a wonderful feeling, to come in on the helicopter and see our compound. It was like coming home. It was like we were born again. We'd survived another mission. All of us had survived. We're looking forward to coming back and getting some good food, because we probably hadn't eaten anything except sea rations in a week or so, and we might have been low on water. We were really, really sick puppies coming in off of that ramp, and when we used to get off the ramp, we'd go back to this little staging area they had, and they had some water there, and we'd take off our ordnance, the grenades, and put them in boxes, and keep drop some of our explosives there, so that they would we wouldn't bring them back in the hooch. Not that we didn't have enough stuff in the back in the hooch. They could have blown us to kingdom come. Slim used to like to use these little landmines. They were only about as big as a tuna can, and he would keep them in a shelf above his bunk, right where he had a picture of his wife. And all it took to activate those was just twist the top of them, and they'd be activated. And he didn't want to bring them back to the ordnance guy, because or put them anywhere, because they were valuable. We were on patrol and we were being chased. He'd like to put those out there to slow down the enemy. We couldn't. I don't know where he got them, but I knew there weren't very many of them around, and he had about 4 or 5 of them, stacked up right above his bunk. I don't know. So anyway, we'd come back from the patrol. We'd drop our gear in the hooch. We'd get a shower, maybe get a beer. It's amazing how resilient, your body is when you're that age, 17, 18, 19. You recover so quickly. If I had done 1/10 of the stuff that I did then today, I'd end up in the hospital. I'd have to go to the hospital. But that was then. This is now. Well, we were coming in from a long patrol one day in Camp Reasoner. And we circled over the compound as usual. And they had a big hill back of the compound, from the landing zone that was down by the rice paddies. And then there was a little staging area, and then there was a long hill that we had to climb to get back. With that hill, seemed like we were climbing Mount Everest, when we were coming in. But we came in there. And this time, when we made our way away from the helicopter, there was a sergeant there from the armory, and he had a couple of assistants with him, some corporals. And they told us to line up, and then each one of us, they told us, spread our arms. We said, well, what's this? What are we spreading our arms? And they very cautiously took all of our ordnance, took our grenades off, and put them in a box, the box that we'd normally put them into. Get our flares, take them off, and keep your arms outstretched, Fleming. I kind of resented it, actually. For one thing, I didn't like anybody messing around with my gear, and another, I didn't like anybody messing around with my physical person either. What were they doing? Looking for counterband or something? We were not exactly bringing in heroin from the bush, from our patrol. So I asked the sergeant. I said, "What's going on? How come we're doing it like this?" He said, "Just keep your arms up." He said, "Didn't you hear about the 3rd platoon?" I said, "No, we didn't hear anything about the 3rd platoon. We were out in the bush. How could we hear anything?" He said, "Well, it goes about a week ago, they came back from a mission, and they were standing right where you are here. And one of the guys took a grenade off of his web gear, and it must have caught on something, because the pin pulled. And before we could get rid of it, before we could throw it away, it exploded, killed him and the guy next to him." Oh my God. He goes, "Yeah." He said, "Not only that, it wounded 2 other guys." He goes, "It happened right where you're standing." So that was the reason, Well, what was the cause of that? I don't know, but I do remember being on teams, when we were transferred into another team. I do remember being on that 3rd platoon's team, and I do remember that those guys were cavalier, to say the least, about getting rid of their ordnance. They were throwing those grenades into the bin like they were so many apples. And I was being cool. I was always careful with that stuff. I had to, carefully wrap each grenade with a little piece of tape so the pin wouldn't easily pull, and yet if I needed it, it would rip off. But that image of those grenades being thrown into that box there, stayed with me. In Maine, everybody uses the chainsaws for everything. And when I first learned to use a chainsaw as a young kid, my father told me, he goes, "Don't always be afraid of this damn thing." He goes, "When you're not afraid of it, that's when you're going to get hurt." And I still remember that. When I start, looking at people, how they handle chainsaws, I still remember his words. But a chainsaw is only gonna hurt the man holding it. Grenade gonna kill everybody around it. I'm surprised that even more people weren't killed by that explosion. But we had to trust each other. We had to trust that each person would do their job and do it right. That the riggers would pack our chutes right. That the helicopter pilots, would come and get us and not leave us. That the person, the crew chief, lowering the ladder or the rope, or would be careful and make sure that was all secured. There's so many steps that needed to be done and done perfectly in order for the mission to become a success. And each one of those steps required an individual doing his absolute best and keeping his mind right on the job 100% of the time. And if you didn't have that, you're going to run into trouble. And unfortunately, you're going to run into trouble not only for yourself, but for the guys around you. So that's my word of wisdom for the day. You know, these guys learned we did learn a lesson. It's not that we didn't learn a lesson, you know, from that accident, but we learned the lesson too late, you know. It should have been, someone should have thought about this, or thought about the problems or the dangers, but there was a failure of imagination in a sense, the same like the shuttle explosion was a failure of imagination when that O-ring failed. Well, hope you enjoy my stories, learn from them, and give me a thumbs up if you do, and subscribe to my channel, and hopefully, you know, we'll all learn something from one another. Thank you.